Iran is dealing with one of its worst droughts as officials warn that dam reservoir levels have dropped below 3% in Mashhad. The city is home to around 4 million people and relies on 4 dams for its water supply. This comes as officials in Tehran warned the city could face rolling cuts of water supplies, with the 5 major dams that supply the capital at critical levels. The government is urging people to reduce water consumption or face rationing. For more on this, we can cross to Toronto and bring in Professor Kaveh Madani, the director of the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment and Health, and Iran's former deputy vice president. Thank you so much for joining the program today.
Pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Now, Iran is facing its worst water crisis in decades. What is causing this devastating drought?
A problem like this was not created overnight. It's a product of decades of mismanagement, lack of foresight, not understanding that water is at the end a big limit to growth and development in a dry region, and not planning for this day. But the situation has been exacerbated by the regional drought and the global climate change. The country, as of now, is in its 6th year of drought. This is very unusual for Iran, and certainly parts of Iran that you just mentioned, like Tehran, Mashhad. These are the biggest cities in Iran. We have seen situations like this in some smaller areas in the past, but this is the first time that the people in the capital and the biggest cities are dealing with this situation.
Now, we touched on it, we touched on it a little bit, some of the impact, but what has the greater impact been across the country?
So it first started with issues like reduced hydropower production, blackouts, and so on. And then when there is water shortage, you first start cutting from the environment, the silent stakeholder, resulting in wetlands drying out and so on. And then farmers would be impacted, industries would be impacted, and then the people in the urban area. So right now, people are facing reduced pressure, water outages in certain hours, and government that is confused with what to do. Let's not forget that this is a country that has dealt recently with a war. The government requires the support of the people, doesn't want to make people angry and create more stress for them. They were hopeful that as we go into the new water year, which started in October, we'll see some rain, but that has not come. So right now, people are very stressed. They don't know what to do because the situation doesn't have a short-term solution. And water rationing or reduced water consumption is the only solution at the moment. And that's very stressful for both sides, I would say, the people and the government that doesn't want to increase the pressure on the citizens.
Now, as you just mentioned there, this issue of water rationing as the only current solution, the government also mentioned the possibility of rolling water cuts in the capital, and warned that they may even have to evacuate Tehran. Is that a realistic plan?
Evacuation is not realistic, as it wasn't during the war. I remember President Trump once asked people in Tehran to leave the city, which is impossible. You were talking about millions of people in that city working, making money, and so on. So that is not possible. But something that the government has done in the past is shutting down the government for a few days a week. And with that, normally there is an encouragement for people to go on vacation, leave the city for a few days. And believe it or not, that is by itself a big relief, because now we're talking about days of water left. And any sort of reduced consumption is a huge help. So evacuation or relocation of the capital is not a solution that can be implemented overnight. But having these measures to encourage people to leave the city might be a small relief, although it's not a fundamental solution.
Now, you're an environmental scientist. What more could the Iranian government be doing to protect the environment and prepare for future situations like this?
The main thing for Iran is that Iran has continued to use more than 90% of its water in the agricultural sector to produce food and to create employment for the poor. Iran needs to diversify its economy and reduce water consumption in some unnecessary areas, but that is an issue that is linked with the issues of sanctions and its relationship with the West and some of the, I would say, high-level and macro policies of the government. Unfortunately, Iran will not have a magic solution for its water sector unless it resolves its other issues. But in the sector, the country has to reduce water consumption in the agricultural sector, and also in other sectors. But there is, I would say, and at the high level, understand that water is a limit to growth, and water availability is declining in the region. It's not the issue that this time the enemies have created for Iran. It's a self-produced problem that should be resolved within the boundaries of the country.
Kaveh, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise. That's Kaveh Madani, Director of the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health.